Yeah, so this is kind of your chance, having spent the day here, to ask anything that is kind of outstanding that you didn't manage to find an answer to, or to ask any questions that everything you've seen has generated, or to ask any questions that you had before you came here but somehow you didn't find a satisfying answer to when you were exploring what was going on. So if some of you have kind of already got those kind of questions brewing in your minds, then that's fine, just ask them. If not, while other people are asking their questions, and sort of think of something and go for it. The other thing we can do is it may be here. Yeah.
I was interested in what you guys thought about the feed-in tariff, because I always thought it was a good thing generally, and then there had a really critical article, the Mondio one, regarding about how basically his view was that because micro renewables were so give you a certain return per pound put into them in terms of electricity, but actually it's a much better idea to subsidise big scale energy projects and micros. However, in view of this article, pretty much a relatively waste of money. So what do you think about that?
Yeah. Okay. Who here is familiar with that debate already and the feed-in tariff? One. Okay. Well, quickly explain what it is and then why there is the controversy, and then I'll try and sort of outline Kat's position on it, maybe. So the feed-in tariff is essentially a scheme whereby if you have a small renewables installation, like some photovoltaics or a small wind turbine, at the moment you sell that electricity to the national grid, and they give you a relatively low price for it, roughly the same price that you would have to buy it for if you were buying electricity from the grid. You then also get a couple of other subsidies, like the Renewables Obligation Certificate. Don't worry about all of the words, but basically you don't get a lot of money for it. It's not a brilliant deal. Feed-in tariff changes all of that completely, and there are different rates for supplying electricity to the national grid based on how you generated it. And the more expensive it is to install and set up the renewables installation, the more money you get for the electricity that you sell. So photovoltaic panels are very expensive. They're quite expensive to install and buy. So the electricity that you get when you sell that back to the grid is worth more than, for example, a cheaper form of renewables like hydro. And the idea is that regardless of what you've installed, you'll end up with about the same amount of money back. So regardless of what you install after 20 years, whether it was PV or hydro or wind, you would have ended up with the same amount of money. So it kind of levels the playing field, is the idea. The controversy is because of where that money comes from. For example, at the moment, if you sell electricity into the national grid, you're getting maybe like 4 or 5p a unit for it. Under the feed-in tariff scheme, if you've got solar panels on your roof, you'll be getting about 35p a unit for it. So the question is, where is that money coming from? And this is where the controversial bit starts. It's not a government subsidy. It's not that the government has said, we think this is a good idea, we've got a big wad of cash that we were going to spend on something anyway, and we think renewables are great, so we're going to give people a reward for selling electricity to the national grid. That's not what's happening. They've said to the power companies, so Northern Electric or Empower or whoever, you're going to pay that. You're going to pay that subsidy to the people who are generating the electricity. You're going to pay them 34p per unit. So the question is then, over the first year or so of the feed-in tariff, that's going to cost the electricity companies about 8 billion. Now, at first glance that looks quite good, because you think, great, they're making a lot of money, we can shave 8 billion off there and everyone will still be happy. The controversial bit comes in because we know that they won't just take a cut in their profit. We know that they're going to make that money back from somewhere else. And they will probably make it back by increasing the price of electricity that they sell to everyone else. So the problem is, and I think this is what the Guardian article was getting at, is you have a system where people who can't afford to have small-scale renewables installed on their houses are paying the feed-in tariff payments of the people who can.
Britain in 20 years. I'm guessing that would require complete silence from the government.
Yeah, the idea of the ZCB is that it's it's kind of like if Cat was going to write the energy policy for the country. So unlikely as it might be, one of the premise of the report is that the government are going to do it. Yeah. So it's not a report that outlines something that is, for example, politically realistic under a certain government, or something that we think the Labour Party might do, or the Tory Party might do, or a particular group of politicians might go for. The point of the report is to say what is technically feasible. So ignoring the political constraints, which I won't pretend aren't enormous, but supposing that they weren't there, supposing you did have complete buy-in from the government, supposing they were convinced that it was something that had to happen, technically, how quickly could you do it? Not only how quickly could you do it, but how could you do it? So that's the idea of the report. It's to demonstrate that it's possible using. It's difficult to say. At the moment, we haven't experienced a fall in demand in people wanting to come on courses. But that doesn't mean that we've kind of arrogantly assumed that we're immune from the recession, because the advice that I've heard and that I've heard from other organisations is that different sectors will be affected at different times. So it might be that 2 years down the line, for one reason or another, people decide that they don't have the money to spend on certain things. So for some industries it was kind of absolutely immediate, like the financial crisis happened and then they experienced that fall in income straight away. Hasn't happened to us yet, but that doesn't mean that we have assumed that we're going to be immune. I guess, there might be some kind of resurgence in people wanting to invest in things that they feel like they're going to make their own existence slightly more robust or resilient. So it wouldn't surprise me. I'm not sure whether this has happened yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if over the next few years there's a resurgence in people wanting to understand more about how to grow their own food, to generate their own energy. As the people have sort of realised the fragility and insecurity that comes with what we thought was an incredibly robust economy that would just carry on growing and carry on providing us with everything that we needed. I would imagine you might start to find people become more interested in learning about things that will make their family or their street or their community more resilient to the ups and downs of the economy. That wouldn't surprise me.